4th, 2018. This is the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners conducting a public hearing on the Spooner Land Use Plan Amendment. Today, the subject of today's hearing is to accept public testimony on the proposed Spooner Land Use Plan Amendment to the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan. Just for the viewing audience and those who are here, there's a sign-in sheet at the back. I'll ask you to sign in, and then when we call forward for those who want to testify, then we'll give you 3 minutes. It'll be posted up on the clock you see on your right-hand side there. I'll ask you to give your name and your where you're from, generally in the county, and then proceed with the 3 minutes. In the meantime, I'll ask Jeremy Davis, to give a staff overview and background of some of the of what this Spooner Land Use Plan Amendment entails. Jeremy?
Okay. Thank you, Chair Blake. Commissioners, again, Jeremy Davis, Thurston County Community Planning and Economic Development. With this application, the applicant requests approval of a site-specific comprehensive plan amendment for 3.8 acres of a 5-acre site located at 8025 Yelm Highway Southeast on the corner of Yelm Highway and Spurgeon Creek Road. And on the map next to the podium, which the audience can see on the monitor, it's the area here that's outlined in a dashed line right here. The amendment would amend map M15, the future land use map in the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan, and the official zoning map for Thurston County would also be amended to be consistent with whatever is finally approved by the board with this amendment. The land use and zoning would change from McAllister Springs geologically sensitive area to neighborhood convenience district. Approximately 1.2 acres on the corner of Spurgeon Creek Road, that's the pink on the map that you see here, is already designated neighborhood convenience district on the 5-acre property. So tonight for the public hearing, option 1 is no change. Option 2 is change the full 5 acres to neighborhood convenience to have uniform land use and zoning on the property. So the total area of existing NC or neighborhood convenience on this corner is approximately 2.2 acres, and this takes in the property on the east side of Spurgeon Creek Road. No specific site plan has been proposed as part of the land use plan amendment request. We usually consider these as a whole on all the uses that could be considered or what could be done on this property if the land use were to change. The Planning Commission recommended no change on the property and to maintain the 3.8 acres of McAllister Springs geologically sensitive area zoning and 1.2 acres of neighbor convenience. So the property is located in an area known as Kelly's Corner and named after the Kelly family and Kelly Resort that opened in the early 1900s and spanned from the subject property and adjacent properties to the southern edge of Pattison Lake. The Kelly Resort was operated until the early 1980s. Records indicate that the area that's designated as neighborhood convenience right on the corner was actually used to be called Kelly's Custom Meat Shop. And this business was opened in 1983 and operated at least until 1991 based on assessor's records. And we do know that the house, barn, and garage were all taken down in 2004. So the north of this property, up here in the gray on the map, is the Lacey urban growth boundary, and you do see some single-family development right there. Those are approximately 1/3 of an acre or higher, and the density is estimated at 1.5 to 2 dwelling units per acre. To the east, on the corner on the northeast property, in the northeast corner of Spurgeon Creek Road and Yelm Highway right here, is a gas station and convenience store. To the east of that is a single-family residential unit, and beyond that it goes into agricultural and more single-family. And it's also designated as MGSA, as you can see on the map. That's this color right in here, going all around, and neighbor convenience. To the west is Tom's Golf Center and Van's Drive-Thru Burger and Espresso Stand, and that property is approximately 35 acres and is owned by the applicant, the Spooners, if I'm not mistaken. And then to the south is a 5-acre property with a single-family home owned by the Van der Rops, and west of the Golf Center is a 90-acre, see if I got this right here, Country Green Turf Farm, also owned by the Van der Rops. And I apologize if I got your name wrong. So. On this property, sewer and water would be provided on site. It would be an on-site sewage treatment system. Because they're outside of the urban growth boundary, they could not hook up to sewer, and that's state law. So according to environmental health, there is a presence of a domestic well and a couple of on-site sewage systems, and there's no record of those being properly decommissioned or abandoned. The property is within the McAllister geologically sensitive area in the health code. That designation in the health code is a wellhead protection area, which does have its own standards and limits the amount of effluent that can be produced by any use on the site, which will further limit any commercial uses that may take place. On the property itself, right along the edge, the northern edge here on the neighborhood commercial or neighborhood convenience, are two very good-sized Gary oak trees. And they're also, in 2012, Washington Fish and Wildlife found Mazamapaka gophers. So access is another issue for the neighborhood convenience portion of the property. Access is provided from Yelm Highway Southeast and Spurgeon Creek Road. Yelm Highway has about 10,000 trips per day, and then Spurgeon Creek Road has about 35 average daily trips. Access on the property itself, I believe on Yelm Highway, is approximately 500-foot distance from the corner, which couldn't be accommodated in the area currently designated as neighborhood convenience. The same challenge exists along Spurgeon Creek Road, where the access generally has to be 300 feet from the corner. They can get access to the MGSA portion of the property if it were this change were not to be approved by the board, but they couldn't have any parking or other facilities, and that would actually limit what else they can do on the property. So public notice for tonight's public hearing was published in the Olympian on June 27, 2018. We also had issued a press release and sent out an emailed notice notifying those on the list, and sent out a mailed notice to all property owners within 500 feet. We received one written public comment for tonight's hearing from Mr. Jeff Merriman, believing, and he has indicated an opposition to changing the land use and zoning from MGSA to NC. With that, are there any questions?
Any questions?
I do have a question. I'm looking at the paperwork attached, and there's a memo dated May 16th that says that the Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 2nd.
Muted that, 'cause I was coughing. I have a question. I'm looking at page 9 of 62. It says at the bottom, it's a memo dated May 16, 2018. And it indicates that the Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 2nd, 2018 on options 1, 3, and 4 only. So they didn't consider option 2? Or that was added later?
You see what he's talking about, Jeremy?
You
Yeah,
find me?
that's interesting. Oh, yes, so they eliminated the original TOF request, so in the Wayback Machine, so to speak, back
Yeah.
in about 2010 or so, there was an application by a previous property owner that only requested changing the land use and zoning for 2.2 acres of the property, so generally going out to the west here of the area that's currently designated as NC. Prior to taking this forward to Planning Commission staff, previous staff, consulted with the Spooners and asked whether or not they wanted to continue with that or expand it to the whole property. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I believe that's the case. And so the Planning Commission going forward decided just to consider the whole property as for the public hearing.
Okay. Yes, but they're currently recommending no change.
No change, yes, sir.
And then one other question, on the property there, is that where Van's Burger is? Or is that on a different property?
Vansberger's right over here to the west,
Okay.
if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
You have a question, comment? All righty. So the next stage of this is to have the public who've signed in on my sheet to come forward to the podium. You see 3 minutes indicated on the clock here. And the first person I have is Mr. Jeff Van Lerup.
Before my time starts, can there be a clarification for the record of how many trips are up and down Spurgeon Creek Road? You said 35?
Just come on up here. Just come to the podium and say that, and it'll be we'll incorporate it there. So go ahead and repeat that, what you said.
I just wanted a clarification on how many trips were up and down Spurgeon Creek.
And it's what, 3,500?
3,500.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Sorry
sir.
about
You have
that.
the floor.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Van Lerup. I reside at 7105 Spurgeon Creek Road, right here. And I do oppose any change for two reasons. One is need. If we just go a half mile to the east up the Elm Highway, we cross over into the urban growth boundary. A quarter mile beyond that, there's all kinds of services there. You have a gas station, you have a veterinary, you have coffee shops, you have restaurants. Another quarter mile beyond that, you have 3 major supermarkets, you have a Lowe's, you have Rite Aid, you have multiple, you have banks, you have everything you need within 1 mile of this place. So I don't really know that there is a need that we need to drag people out of the urban growth area out into the rural and increase on that 10,000 trips a day, and that intersection, which gets 3,500 cars turning on that thing, and it's already congested and dangerous, and so I don't see a need to do that. So the other thing is I think it's a pretty big leap from how it originally got its designation to what is being asked for today. It's not like there was a real neighborhood convenience ever provided there by Mr. Kelly with his meat cutting surface. It was a residence, and he had out in the garage he had a meat cutting business, I guess, but it's not like there was, you know, parking lot and a "we're open" sign or anything like that. There wasn't really a going concern there until all of a sudden jumped from that to 5 acres of potential development. I think is a bit of a gaming of the system and making something out of nothing. So those are my two great concerns outside of my personal preferences, that I don't think there's really a need, and the benefit of what might be placed out there is offset by the increased traffic. And then I just think it's a bit of a leap to go from how that originally was obtained, the neighborhood convenience, to what's being asked for today. So thank you.
Thank you for your work, sir. All righty, so the next person I have is Sue Spooner. Hello, Sue.
Hi.
Can you pull the mic down just a tad? There you go. We want to hear you.
You want to hear me? I think you can hear me.
Okay.
My name's Sue Spooner. I reside on 8308 83rd Street, which is just right down off of Spurgeon Creek Road. And our reason for wanting a rezone on this 5-acre property, obviously already we've got the 1.25 acres that is NC. The reason we're trying to get it to the full 5 acres is to make the property more suitable to whomever is going to build on it, which is what we've said. We don't have any plans for it right now, but our big concern is where the NC is right now. If somebody were to build, they would have to build only up on that right front corner of the property. And our other concern is the old growth trees. And if they do that, I'm worried about that the trees come out. And we'd like to preserve those trees, and by making the full thing, the 5 acres, whoever is going to build on there gives them the option as to where to be able to build. To my understanding, they're still going to have to go by the same size building. They're still going to have to go by the McAllister Springs sensitive area. All of those things are still going to have to be maintained within the property. It just gives the freedom as to where you actually put that. Apparently, you can't even put a big building, where you can actually put that building on the piece of property. So it would allow for them to be able to put your parking in a reasonable spot rather than just on that front corner of the Elm Highway. It just gives some flexibility within the piece of property and to be able to save those trees. And my husband Tim and I, we do totally respect the concern with the Van Lierps for the fact that their property does butt up to this. And we totally respect that. I totally would understand if I lived there, I wouldn't want the thought that somebody was going to build right on my property line. But I don't think that that's going to be an issue. I think if someone's going to build, they're going to go right more to the center of that property, and it wouldn't be back on their property line. So I guess we're just trying to do it, like I say, to be able to preserve those trees and just to make more flexibility of where this building would be put, knowing that all the restrictions that are on the 1.2 acres would still going to have to be maintained on the 5-acre piece as well. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you for your words today, ma'am. All righty, is there any other comments or questions of the staff, or?
Not yet. Is that it for testimony?
No, yeah, is there any other person would like to come to the podium to testify? Do anybody? No? Okay. So yes, now that's completed. Thank you. Do you have any other comments, Jeremy?
I do not know, no.
All righty. I don't have anything, so is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, I move to close the public hearing, July 24, 2018.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for July 24, 2018. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned.